Good evening. We're going to get started here. So I'd like to call to order the City of West Bend Licensing Board for September 20th at 6:25 p.m. Note that we do have a quorum and we have a whopping 2 items on the agenda. The first being approval of the minutes, the regular Licensing Board minutes for September 13th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned. Seconded. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then under agenda items for consideration, we'll have number 2, appointment of agent Nicholas Zalecki for Meyer Store at 2180 South Main Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned seconded. Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then having no further business for the licensing board, I'm going to adjourn by the call of the chair. We're going to give our meeting about 3 more minutes here, and then we'll get started with the common council meeting and the presentation of the Beautification Award in just a little bit.
No. Gerrymander.
All right. Being that it's 6:30, I would like to call to order the City of West Bend Common Council meeting for September 20th. Note that we do have a quorum. I believe Alderman Kennedy is on her way. Please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We'll begin with the minutes, approval of the regular Common Council meeting minutes for September 13th.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Keeler and Model. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to presentations. Number 1, presentation of Mayor's 2021 Beautification Awards. We have Mr. Mike Faulkner from Roots and Branches here to present to us. Come on up. We had a great time this summer as we were picking and choosing. I mean, we went along. I'll just comment a little bit. We went along to visit all the residents to in one, and it was literally got more and more impressed with every house that I went to. It was a really great time. So I'll let you kick it off, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my honor to be here tonight to present our Mayor Beautification Award winners this year in the city of West Bend. Roots and Branches is our organization that every year we have judges that go through the entire city and look for places that a little bit extra effort to make West Bend a beautiful place to live. So we appreciate all the efforts that were put in to it. We appreciate all the, the time and just how nice things looked here. So before I introduce these people, I would just like to recognize a couple of other people from Roots and Branches. Our executive director is Amy Johnson. She'll be helping hand out the awards. Our board president is Sharon Scott. A couple board members here, Tammy Pikowski and Donna Kogler are here. And I'd like to also thank a number of the judges that are here this year among the crowd. So I appreciate all their efforts. They put in a lot of time, obviously volunteer effort, doing those things. So we appreciate all their efforts. So they go through every district or every street in each district, and it's every 6 years. If you have one, then you're not eligible for the next 6 years. So we try to rotate things through like that, and it's worked out very well. It's been a very nice thing for the city and for our organization, and it's worked out very well. We got a lot of nice publicity this year, and it's been fun. And Mayor Jenkins has been very involved with it. When we present the awards or put the signs up every year he goes along, it's been fun. So having said all those things, I'd like to introduce our winners for this year. We have 5 of our 8 districts are present here tonight. And the way we want it to work is I will introduce the winners, and then if you could please step up to this area right behind me with your aldermen, like District 1, then John would come up and come over here, and Jessica will take some pictures. All right? So that's how we see it working. Thank you. All right, so District number 1 is Lori Ewing from 8th Avenue. Alderman is John Butchlick. And if you haven't had a chance to see these properties when they were shown in July, just go back on the Facebook pages of the city or Mayor Jenkins' page, Roots and Branches page. You really should go through and scroll through and see them. They're amazing places with so many different types of properties in the different areas of town. All right, so District 2 is Jim and Tanya Syriacs. On Princeton Place, Alderman Mark Allen. It's a good geography lesson too, because there's a lot of small places like, if you said Princeton Place, I don't know, everyone would automatically know where that is, for example. It's a tiny little street and things, so it's fun getting to learn some of those. And I always tell the judges, they rotate districts every year, so they need to judge for 8 years, and they will see every single street in the entire city. So it would work. All right, District 3, Jan Young on Aspen Place, Alderman Brett Berquist. District 4 is Priscilla and Stephen Schacht on Laurel Drive South, Alderman Randy Kaler. In District 5 is Vivian Lisco on Judith Court, Alderman Jed Dolnick. And you have a few people that were unable to make it. Actually, we're numerical order. 1 through 5 are here, and sorry, 6, 7, 8, but those are the people that are not here. So I don't know if there's anything to do with being the odd numbers, or I'm not sure. But the winner of number 6 was Greg and Hazel Griffin on North Street, which is Tracy Aaron's district. District 7 was Bernie and Mary Renfleisch on Upper Woodford Circle, which is Justin Model's district, the Barton area, which is also where I live, so go 7, right, Justin? And then District 8 was Linda Sigler on Willowbrook Drive, which was Megan Kennedy's district. Just a real quick story. When Mayor Jenkins and I went out, and he's always bragging to me how he's been on every street in town, you know, when in his campaigning and whatever. So I said to him, I know a street that I do not think you were on this street. He goes, oh yeah, I was on that street, So we go down there and we turn into, it's off of Park Avenue back into Willowbrook subdivision, and we turn left. He goes, yeah, I've been on that street. So then we go back to make a right turn, and I said, hey, if you weren't on this street, you got to fess up and be honest here. And he goes, yeah, actually, I was not down that street. So he found one street that Mayor Jenkins did not go, and so I know that he'll be there next time. So
There you go.
So those are the mayor awards. What we tried to do this year also, we've been trying to have the Business Beautification Awards evolve in the city here for a number of years. And we've been trying to do different things with it. And I really want to thank Amy Johnson and Jessica Wilds for the work that they have put in with me trying to figure out how to do this. So we're trying to do different things. And what we came up with this year was we have 3 areas of the city. We decided to do the Barton area, the Barton Business Association, the Bid Board District, down sort of the downtown area, and then sort of an at-large district in the city. So I had judges that we went out and we had nominations that came in. We had a good number of nominations from various people. So that was, certainly a good thing. And then we went out and looked at all of the different places, and we came up with 3 very nice picks. I wish we would have gotten to them a little earlier because they were so beautiful in later summer. It was a little late as we got there, but they still look great all year long. But so those 3 winners in the Business Beautification Award. And I want to thank West Bend Mutual and Marion Rathke, who represented West Bend Mutual in the process as a sponsor, for their help as well. So the Barton area district was El Burro Plumbing and Heating up on North Main. Very nice place. So the Bid Board district on the downtown area was the Red House, which just always looks very nice. So they were the winner on that. And then in the at-large area of town, the place that really has done a really nice job of adding things into an outside area was the Chocolate Factory, who was represented. We're very pleased that they are here tonight. So thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate the people that made the effort to come tonight, and the judges and all of the winners, and thank you for all the efforts that you've done to make the city a more beautiful place to live and be involved in. And I appreciate City Council for giving us the opportunity to come here tonight to do this, and for the support of Roots and Branches in town. We have our big garden party this week at the West Bend Mutual, so if all of you, we sort of think you'll probably be there Wednesday night, and it'll be a great time. So, hope to see you there, and we'll thank you very much for your time tonight. Thursday night. Did I say Wednesday night? Thursday night. Well, actually, you can come Wednesday night too, and then stay for Thursday night. But yes, Thursday night, the garden party, West Bend Mutual. See you then. If nothing else, you need to come and see the package that Justice put together for the Barton area and stuff. So it's going to be awesome. So seriously, I hope that you might have the opportunity to attend. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
The what?
Your glasses.
Where?
Thanks to Mike and thanks Roots and Branches for getting to go through this adventure every year. I just think it keeps getting bigger and better. So thanks again for coming out. Thank you to our audience for being in attendance. You're welcome to stay for a really exciting meeting if you'd like to. Otherwise, I hope you have a great night and have fun watching the Packer game without us. And with that, I will recess the Common Council meeting to Public Works.
All right, I would like to call to order the Board of Public Works. We have 3 items on the agenda. One, the approval of minutes from September 13, 2021.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor. Any corrections? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2, U.S. Cellular lease agreement. Good evening, Travis.
Good evening. I am here tonight to get approval to sign into a long-term cell antenna lease agreement with U.S. Cellular for the space on top of our 10th Avenue tower. U.S. Cellular latest lease contract was signed in 2000 that included 3 additional 5-year terms, and all the terms have been exhausted. With the help of Ian, Jay, Ruth, and myself, this gave us an opportunity to look into our current lease language and update to the latest cell lease language that will help better protect the utility on its property. The new lease agreement will consist of 5-year terms with a 5% annual rent increase each year. Money generated from this agreement will be put into water utility operating funds, and we are recommending that the board and council approve this new lease agreement. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions for Travis?
Just one quick question. Is there anything major in terms of like equipment that they're changing out or doing or building bigger, et cetera, that we should be?
It's antennas. So basically the antennas you see on top of our towers, basically what's happening is everybody's migrating to the 5G antennas. Some people use a 5G with 2 more antennas, which costs more for rental space. Some people are actually downgrading the way their system works. So basically it's everything on top of our water tower. Anything, U.S. Cellular doesn't have any housing. There's a couple buildings down. They don't know, there's none of them that they own. So this would be strictly everything. There are antennas that would be up on top. The antennas consist of, they're probably about 18 inches wide by 3 feet tall. There'll be, I believe there's 6 or 8 antennas for U.S. Cellular. And they'll be changing those out once we get the approval here.
Any other questions? Alderman Nell?
It looked, from their diagrams, it looked like they're adding the 5G antennas around the shaft of the tower.
Yeah,
As opposed to up on top. Up on top, they still have antennas,
yeah.
but the new antennas are going to be on the,
Yeah, there's actually 2 rings on that antenna. There's one right below we'll say the crest of the bottom of the bowl. So there'll be a few there, and then there's a ring on top of the tower where they'll have other equipment on there also.
so they're going to have antennas in both places,
Yeah.
correct?
Any other questions?
Could I just jump in? And Travis, you can speak to this in more detail, but if there's any concern about like the structural integrity of our tower, they do take that into account. We do have an engineer that works with us that vets that in advance. So Travis, I don't know if you want to say a few words about that. And then the second thing that I think the mayor and council should know, that this is a crazy rich lease. And I'm really proud of the work that Travis did pushing this company and really resetting the bar for all future leases. We've been working towards something like this, and there was a nearby comparable that we utilized to push this company. Our other leases are all in the 35,000 or so range, and so to get one up at the 80 mark is really important for the revenue stream for water utility in the future. And it'll just push those other companies as they become renewed up against that bar as well. So great work, Travis. I wanted to share that, make sure that the council knew that we don't just take what they give us, and they always try to start with 20 grand below than what they were paying in the past. And it's a pretty serious negotiation, and sometimes it takes some hardball and several months to get done. But Travis, would you speak to that engineering piece?
Yeah, I'll comfort you a little bit on how the process works. I'm more than happy to talk about this. It might be a mistake on your part that you wanted, I can talk for a long time. Basically, when a cell company comes in, they want to do any changes to their equipment up on our tower, the first thing that we require an application. So application consists of who they are, what they're doing, how long they're going to be there, everything from details of what they're putting on and off. There's money that's involved with applications, so we're not paying our engineers to do their reviews. So there's money involved with that. So they're paying for our engineers to review all their stuff. So they do calculations on winds and structural, and it's all up to them to do that. We give it to our engineering firm. They are well aware of what we have. We've been working with this engineer firm for 30 years. They know exactly what our towers can do and can't do. So once we get the review done from our engineers, they come back and they give us a thumbs up, or they say they got to do this or change this, or we want that. And basically, it's up to the cell companies to decide what they want to do from there. Most of the time, everybody has a cell phone. They're going to do it. And so then from there, we give them the okay. And then if we can, what happens whenever they change equipment, there's exhibits in each contract. Exhibits refer to the exact diagram that's on the plan. So anytime that changes, whether they take stuff off or put stuff on, that opens a contract. So that's what we've been taking advantage of, trying to get a little more funds for rent, maybe making some language changes, stuff like that to take, where in the past we just kind of like, okay, come and do it. Yep, put it on. And we kind of got educated a couple years ago on the proper way of really handling this. So that's how we're moving forward, and we'll continue to do it with the risk of potentially losing one, but I don't think that's going to be the problem. I really don't. Because cell phones, they need us. 5G needs us. We don't need them.
And a perfect location, too. Just one question, Travis, regarding the phone number. I know you have to have a person present whenever they enter that tower. What happens after hours when you're not around? Is there a means for them to contact an emergency number? Yeah,
typically with the phone number that we list, after hours, automatically will direct them to police dispatch. Dispatch will call our on-call person. That person will call and meet them there. And then even there's actually a worksheet that they have to fill out to know who you are, IDs, everything. It's not about the antennas, it's about the water that's in there. So that's the most important thing. But yeah, there's always contact with us somehow or some way.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there aren't any more questions? All right, I have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Item number 3, agreement for improvement within existing easement, 1341 Daisy Drive. Good evening, Max.
Good evening. Thank you. This item is following the request from the property owners at 1341 Daisy Drive. They desire to install a fence around their property, and some of the fence will encroach in an existing storm sewer easement, municipal easement that the city has. We have done this kind of agreement with other property owners wishing to install, same thing, a fence that would cross an existing easement. So we have a template agreement which the council has seen before and the property owners have signed, and staff would recommend approving the agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have motion for any questions for Max? There are none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Being no further business before the Board of Public Works, I adjourn.
With that, I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting. First on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes from the regular meeting of September 13th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next on the agenda, item for consideration, we have approving of the 2022 capital budget and 5-year plan. I'm thinking Jay is going to give us some info on this.
Yep, I'll start, and there are several department heads in the room that have items in the CIP for 2022 as well. If there are specific questions, we can defer to them. Process-wise, we handled this very similar to past years. began meeting as a department head team of department heads that had CIP requests. Those initial meetings produced a much larger number than what you're seeing before you, and as we continued to meet and discuss priorities and items that could be pushed for an additional year within their respective budgets, the list became more and more narrowed down to the 3.4 that you have before you. If you recall the previous council's actions regarding dedicating $2 million, a relatively recent change for borrowing $2 million dedicated to road improvements that occurred after the 2018 advisory referendum to encourage additional spending on roads. So we increased up to the 2 million, and then the additional million to get to 3 flat. All the other departments basically compete for that. So the pavement maintenance program takes up the 2 million, and then the other departments compete for the million. You can see that it's not exactly 2 and 3 like on the head. We do work together, and Max, for example, if he has a road that doesn't come in exactly at 2, will be plus or minus. And then the 400,000 is the remaining balance for 18th. We did borrow some additional funds in 2021 that are being earmarked for 18th Avenue improvements, and then this balance of 400,000 should complete the project in 2022 when the road is actually reconstructed. I can talk through line item by line item. Probably prefer just to answer any questions that you might have. A couple of highlights: the comprehensive plan might be confusing. It was actually included in last year's CIP as well, and it was rejected by bond counsel as not a qualified expense based on the form of the note that we took out. That was actually a blessing in disguise, as we were on the heels of creating TID 14 and actually the creation of TID 15 in 2021. So the likelihood of our small development department having time to devote to a comprehensive plan, even though this is a contract with a private vendor to assist us in the creation or the update of our comp plan, it's still, in my opinion, a blessing in disguise that we were not tasked with doing that this year. It would have been very difficult to attempt to get that done or even started in 2021. So it reappears in 2022's budget. Our comp plan is out of date, and statutorily we're required to have a comprehensive plan, and that it's supposed to be in sync. We've had a bunch of amendments to it over the years. Mark can speak to the gory details of it, but something that really needs to get done. It's not an entire rewrite of the plan, so when this plan was originally put in place, it was a much, much larger undertaking than what the 75,000. This is more of an update to our existing plan. Pavement maintenance, we talked about a little bit. The roads are listed there for you, and Max can speak in more detail. The ramp up paging tones and countdown clock, that's a matter of upgrading the equipment, software and hardware at FS1. Specifically, that $110,000 will help us with the antiquated equipment that's in Fire Station 1 and put the firemen and women in a better position to know the timing that they're up against, and to get them encouraged is maybe a nice word of out the door as soon as possible. Again, specifics on that, Deputy Chief Chuck Beistel's here and can speak to those. And then maybe lastly, I'll chat about I'll do 2 lastlies. The library roof project, that's been on a radar for the last few years. The library board has really wanted to get this done. This funds 50% of the project, so it's 172 times 2. This project is being funded through the capital offset funds that they have remaining in their fund balance. Fund balance that's grown over the years from county and city levy contributions, and that are now available to be spent. Specifically, the capital project funds only to be spent when 50% is matched by the city. This gets that done and really positions that building for a long time. They've had some leaks, and it's been a few years of constant patching and trying to find the best fix. This is a complete re-roof, and Todd Meeks and the roofing experts that have been on the building and throughout the building, the roof, the last few years have recommended this as being the best route to go. And then lastly, the Public Works truck, I'll just point that out because there's a glut of Public Works patrol trucks, the plow trucks that we have, in this 2003 to 2006. So back in the day, councils in the city was able to purchase a bunch of them. We ideally would be replacing more than one. It's something to keep an eye on for the future as we look through the CIP for future years. But if you look at 2023's CIP, there's a couple of trucks that are lining up. So as more funds potentially become available, we'll be able to try to ramp that up, or at least getting Doug one truck in 2022. Any questions? I'll attempt to answer them. Thank you.
Go. All right, I also have questions, but you guys can start. Randy, you were first.
All right, first of all, Jay just clarified that 1.5 that we borrowed last year that we did not use, I would assume, is the reason our borrowing is lower this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. The remaining balance for the 18th project in particular is only $400,000.
I'm sorry. Repeat that. What's the 400?
The balance needed to fund the 18th Avenue project.
Okay, but remember last year we borrowed that 1.5 extra. That's in here. Okay. So then why in 2021 did we jump to, okay, forget it. That comes off, it goes in. Answer my own question. Thanks.
Alderman Allen?
Yeah, couple of questions. The first is the skid steer. Is that a replacement or a new acquisition?
A replacement of a 1997 skid steer.
Okay.
In Public Works? Yep.
And the forestry trucks, same deal? Old trucks that we need to replace because they're no longer feasible to repair, correct?
Yeah. Mike can speak to it in particular, but it's a 2001 F-350 that we're replacing.
I was just down on Main Street. Those are classics. Not kidding.
Alderman Bushlick?
Yeah, that forestry truck, that is not the boom truck, right?
No, that is not the bucket truck. The truck that's in the CIP budget is our forestry truck, the one, we keep all our chainsaws, power pruners, things like that on that truck. That truck goes out daily. The maintenance that we do on our equipment, we always do it with hours, not miles. All the city driving, things like that. So if you convert the hours over 2 miles, this vehicle has over 300,000 miles on it. It's a 2001. Again, this vehicle goes out every day. If we would have an emergency response vehicle in our department, this would be the one. When we get the phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning because the road's blocked, this is the first vehicle out of our building. The bucket truck would be number 2, chip truck, things like that. This truck is pretty important to our operation.
Okay, question, I know this bucket truck is just a headache, but I haven't seen it in the capital improvements all the way through 2026. Can you give me an insight on that?
I'll start, Alderman Butchlick, and Mike can fill in details. This has been a long-standing discussion item with the City of West Bend organization and council. The previous council a few terms ago has authorized administration and the Parks Department to fund a used bucket truck out of fund balance funds. So as a truck becomes available, Mike and his team have been tasked with coming back through Carrie and myself, and then it would come to you guys to utilize those funds from fund balance in order to purchase the truck. That's been on their radar. Mike and I have had several conversations about it since he's been the director, and previous to that, Craig Hepner. They just hadn't found the perfect truck that they're comfortable with replacing our existing truck.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that at least we're making effort. I know that's pretty tough to find, but okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Alderman Dolan?
It was basically on the same subject. Yes, with Hepner in the past too. He brought that up passionately a few times, and I wasn't completely clear that that's what we were talking about. But I'm glad to see that's on there.
Recently, Jay and I have had a conversation. We've been working with a new vendor and trying to locate I can look up online all day long, I can find all kinds of equipment out there, but our vendors are gonna know better, have a better handle on quality, things of that nature. We did have a couple examples, Jay and I spoke about it recently. Actually, there's one in North Carolina right now that might be right where we might need it. So, again, just another discussion or two, and it might come back to common council here shortly. But yeah, I mean, we're not just looking southeastern Wisconsin, we're looking all over the place to try and find something.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Alderman Dolnick?
Looking at the street 5-year plan, I've got one street that is not on here that it would appear to be pushed off. Earliest for construction would be 2028. I don't know how that's going to work. Talking about Kilbourne Avenue. I don't have a good answer for this because we're not borrowing enough. We have lost so much. We're so far behind on fixing our streets that I don't know how we even begin to catch up. But Max, I don't know how Kilbourne can wait until 2028. And then the other question I have is Sand Drive. If the concrete plant were to develop and generate enough traffic, Mark, that would put a strain on the unimproved stretch of sand. A lot of that would be paid for because it's reconstruction and upgrade out of assessments, but it still has to be borrowed for. But I assume that this isn't written in stone, that we could still address Sand Drive if the concrete plant project comes to fruition.
Yes, I'll start with the Sand Drive question then. Sand Drive reconstruction was planned to be dependent on development along the area because of, like you said, the assessment. And so having development would make it easier to assess those properties. Of course, if the city decides to rebuild Sand Drive from the subdivision by the former concrete plant up to, you're talking up to Decor Road, there would be assessment cost for the roads, the utilities, whatever we install there. And with the new residential development coming in, that's something that I discussed with Mark Petrovich, and that could be a consideration. We have to see where the numbers fall, and we're probably going to have to do a borrowing, or we would have to alter the plan that we have and push some streets that we have planned right now to do that. Same thing with Kilbourne. I know that, it's different, but for Kilbourne, we had looked at that street, and I don't know if you remember when we did Schmidt Road resurfacing a couple of years ago, we had looked at Kilbourne first, and that's where we were going to go. However, because of issues with utilities in that area, we have to first fix those utilities. When I did discuss this with the utilities earlier this year or late last year, they have more concerns with other facilities that are in Pennsylvania. So that's why we moved Pennsylvania up the list. And unfortunately for Kilbourne, yes, it looks like it would be later, unless again we can move some of the streets we have in the current plan and switch to have Kilbourne done earlier. I want to address also Summit Drive, because we looked at that. At some point, we are going to resurface with our Public Works department. However, with turnover in the personnel, we didn't have the personnel to resurface. We put together a cost estimate to see what it would cost to have a contractor do it. And recently I inspected it with our consultant, and we found that we need to replace storm sewer there. So he's working on a cost estimate for that storm sewer so we can add it to the road reconstruction, and we'll come up with a number. Hopefully, depending on what that number is, we're hoping to fit it in next year, depending on what the other reconstruction projects come at. So, I don't know, that was a long answer. I don't know if I answer what you were asking for. Yeah.
On your radar, that's all I can ask for.
Any other questions? Alderman Tracy, go ahead.
I'm not sure who to direct this to, but I was surprised to see that the roof on the library's failing. I remember it being built. Is that the life of an average roof? Is that and it's a large ticket item. Is that something we're going to have to budget for every, I don't know, is it 15 years old maybe?
It's 20. Mark might be
Okay.
able to give more specifics about it, but I believe it was built 20 years ago.
It is closer to 20 years. However, at the time that the addition was put on to the library, there's also an existing roof.
Got it.
That's the most significant portion of this for the replacement.
Okay.
But even a 20-year-old commercial roof has maintenance issues
Okay.
within it. So, and I trust my building inspection and maintenance people, and they brought in a couple of consulting firms
Sure.
that do this type of work to evaluate it, and their recommendation is for the replacement rather than trying to do a couple. We actually had 3 different options, and the other 2 options would not buy you the life. The value wasn't there for those less expensive options.
So every 20 years, it'll probably have a price tag like this?
It doesn't have to be every 20 years, and what we're intending to do, the city does not have a facilities management plan for municipal buildings. I have tasked our building superintendent with compiling that sort of thing so that we can put these kind of budgets on a longer-term facility management schedule so that we can roll that into your CIP. We do not have that for heating systems. We do not have that for all these large ticket items. So,
Alderman Allen?
Question for Mike. You can nod if it's easy, but at what point do we get to where we really need that bucket truck and we can't wait for the Cinderella bucket truck to show up? We've run around with a glass slipper for 3 years.
I think we're there right now. We're very, very close that this vehicle's not going to be operational very much longer. To be quite honest with you, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we got it towed off the street again. Another $3,500 of work to the transmission, things of that nature. That's why we've had very, very detailed and very specific discussions with our vendor in the last 2 weeks, Mark, in reference to this vehicle. It needs to get out of our inventory soon.
So what is the delta between the cost of new and the cost of Cinderella?
The original, we were working with a company up in the Appleton area. We were looking at a new bucket truck cost at about $250,000. The Common Council, the mayor of the Common Council, former mayor, former council asked that we take a look at the possibility of a used vehicle in the price range of maybe $150,000. The one recently that we did find in North Carolina is $163,000, so we're a little bit north of the $150,000 mark. But with any hope, we're going to take our existing bucket truck, sell it at auction. There's going to be a value there of some nature, $5,000 to $10,000. This year we're going to replace our chip truck, again used for forestry work. We're hoping that's going to be a price tag of about $15,000 at auction. So to get that $150,000 mark with the sale of some of our existing equipment that we're going to sell at auction, we could probably bring that price down a little bit. So again, Jay and I had one brief conversation in reference to that one specific situation, and we were just kind of working through some things and waiting to kind of act on it.
Do we need to set a stop loss point at which we have to go buy a new truck? I mean,
think-
even buying a new truck is not something we do this week, and, we can't take delivery on it Monday.
Right. I think the vehicle the possible vehicle, if it's still available, the one I've mentioned, something like that, we would probably have in inventory within several weeks or within 2 months. They have 2 or 3 of them in inventory at this point in time. They're selling them throughout the nation. If they still have them or not, I don't know. Otherwise, we would just have to keep researching used vehicles or whatever else might be available. So we've been trying to target that $150,000 mark.
Okay.
Alderman Request.
Max, can you step up, please? When you commented about Summit Drive being inserted into the plan, I see on the plan right now, it was scheduled for sometime after 2026, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're looking at inserting it into the plan then for this coming year, 2022, which would mean then that there are some streets that are on 2022 that are already looking at very, soon to be replaced to now possibly be bumped. Do you have a list of those names or an idea of which streets are further up or further down on this list?
Yes, we do have the list of streets. So what we have is the list of streets from the plan that we've been following since 2012 to be reconstructed. And after that plan was established, this is when the city went to borrowing less to reimburse debt. And so we were borrowing only for the pavement maintenance program, which was supposed to be specifically for maintenance of streets. But we were using that funding to do those reconstruction, and whatever was left over, then we would do maintenance with it. And some years we had more leftover, some years less leftover. So, for example, when we did Schmidt Road, is because we had more leftover, so we kept carrying over several years, and we got to a comfortable number where we could do that resurfacing. And that's where we are today, that we're looking at doing Summit. So that's based on, obviously, pavement rating. That's based on average daily traffic. And so we have the list of those streets which I had provided last year in that spreadsheet from Whistler, where we have all the PCRs. Mm-hmm. And then our consultant looks at, okay, we have so much money, that means we can do so many square feet of street, and we have this street can fit in, this one's too long, that one's too long, and then that's how we pick those streets, and that's how Summit came up. If you want a more extensive list, I could provide that. We could look into that and send you that list.
Okay, so you're telling us that we have money available to get Summit Drive into this mix then, correct?
At this point, like I was saying, we could do a resurfacing. I don't know if we have enough to do the storm sewer as well. Where I'm waiting for that number. If we have to do the storm sewer, though, we probably have to do a bigger project with some replacement of curb and gutter, so something that falls more into a reconstruction. So it might be a much larger number, and maybe we won't be able to get all that done, but we probably will be able to do the resurfacing only if, with the leftover money that we probably
I guess
will
I'm just
have.
asking because, when this list comes out, there are going to be people that are going to be recognizing some of these streets. And if, say, Fifth Avenue, gets moved back, there are ramifications of that with these certain people.
Yes. And Fifth Avenue is scheduled for construction next year.
I understand
so
that.
It's not something that's going to be moved back. Okay. There are a lot of ramifications with Fifth Avenue, as you very well know, with the stormwater issues and the flooding that we get. We got a report from Sewer Pack recommending oversizing of the pipes there. It is currently under design for construction next year, so it's
Okay.
not something that's
Forgive
going to
me.
move back.
Fifth Avenue is probably a bad example. How about Badger Lane? Okay, Badger is like driving on gravel right now, and I get calls every week from people who live on Badger. Okay, when are we going to get done? Well, the list says 2026, or even 2027. Okay, so if we're looking at adjusting the list, okay, these people are going to be concerned with it. Okay?
Sure.
So I'm just asking if that's.
Sure. And the
if
list
there is a
that you
list.
see there with the 5-year plan is based on the annual borrowing of the 2 million. So that list is not going to move. When streets are being added, like I said, it's because we bid out those projects, and then they come lower than the budgeted amount. So we have that money, and then we keep saving it over several years.
Correct.
And then suddenly we have money to do an extra street that might be in 2020, 2031, 2032, et cetera.
And in the past, you've been able to do some of that in-house, like,
Yes.
yeah, there are certain other streets like, what was it? Bobolink was done with in-house and that.
Yeah, and
Okay,
Jefferson,
I understand
yes.
that.
Mhm.
And that's done with those funds then.
That's
that are
correct.
left. Okay.
And yes, having Public Works do it in-house helped also with managing those funds, because maybe we didn't have enough to have a contractor do it, but if we had enough to get it done in-house.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Dolnick?
I'm sorry, I just thought of something with streets, and I don't know if it's for Max and or Jay, but we're waiting for that report from the county. They were going to inventory all of our streets. We were going to, as I recall, going to go from a 5-year plan to a 30-year plan on our streets. But are we going to be able to finance that, because we're barely able to finance what we have now?
I'll answer the financing piece, and Max can answer the timing piece as to where the transportation sustainability plan is with the development with the county. The financing piece is likely to produce, their plan is for us or with us is likely to produce a number that's way higher than the number that we're including right now for roads. 2 million is what we're putting in for roads, and it results in the plan that you see in advance, or here and in the advancing years as to the roads we can fund. Once we have the system-wide cost needs identified, that'll be another conversation for council and for our organization, and to figure out how to deal with. Just similar to, I would say, pre-2018, when we went out to advisory referendum, as there was lots of conversations about roads at that time. So I think the simple answer to your question is there is not a financing piece that's coming with the sustainability plan. Right. It's a plan that will identify that road need. And then Max has been working closely with the county. He can talk about the timeline of it.
Yes, and so we had a meeting with them a few weeks ago, and they had started looking at all the roads that have the lowest PCR of 2, and what it would take to fix all these roads. And I think the number was like $60 million. So, so Mike at the county, who's taking care of this, was still working and looking at all the other pavement condition ratings, 3 through 8. And actually, we received an email from them last week, so we're meeting with them again this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, to go over where they're at. Once we have the plan, once they have completed the plan, which I don't know if it's completed right now, but we'll bring it to council and we'll have a presentation with the way the tool works and the numbers and the ramifications, and obviously what level of funding would be needed to implement that plan.
Any more questions? Great. I did have just a couple questions also. I think kind of probably for Jay, I guess. My questions are just a little bit more like broad scope. How does the way that we are setting this up in the borrowing, how does this kind of compare to the last few years and like the long-term debt repayment plan? Like, are we still within the range that we had kind of established, or are we starting to creep outside of the range? I guess that's kind of my question.
Yeah, that's a fair question. It's absolutely within the range. This borrowing 2 million for roads, 3 total, and fitting in 7th and 18th was a, I'll say, short range, long range plan that was put in place 3-ish years ago. And so this is the end year of that plan, and the borrowing has continued to drive the total debt down based on 3 million and the 2 roads. The borrowing that we have done outside of this plan for the 2 TIF districts, TID 14 and 15, is outside of that. So that those are monies that are going to be generated back in increment and repay those borrowings. But so maybe a 2-prong answer to your question. The 3 million and the 2 major roads are still driving the total debt down. The temporary increase or spike, and you see that in the bond schedules that and borrowing schedules that Phil and John share with us, have tipped it up a little bit based on those 2 TIDs that we had were on nobody's radar at that time.
My other question, the library, I know we're going 50 and the library is going 50. My other question was around the county and having any responsibility or obligation there. Does the county, are they planning to put in? I know they do.
Yeah, I would say the library would tell you that they are using the county dollars that they've received for capital expenditures over the years, and now they are not able to expend them unless they're matched 50% by the city organizations.
Okay.
Yes.
And one other question, actually, just on the fire paging system. I saw it's 110 this year, but there's another 100,000 for the project next year. Is that like because it's a pieced approach? Are we only getting 50% of it paid for up front, or is there like a second phase that'll actually come in and be like added on, or how are we kind of doing that?
I think I'll let Chuck talk through the details of that, but I mentioned Fire Station 1 is what is being funded by this 110.
Mm-hmm.
And as the fire analysis comes back and determines the future of our fire station,
It'd be for another fire station. It's not a completion of a project. It would be like another fire station being upgraded or something.
Correct, and it's likely to be a number less than that if I'm not speaking out of school based on what Chief Kudek has shared with me. That 110 was the upfront cost, and then the 100 he had in as a placeholder, but that number is likely to go down.
Yes, so that's for the main components, and the main components actually are going to start at like the dispatch and go to Station 1. So the system, it's a G2 station alerting system. It's to help lower the response times. So as the dispatch is taking a call and they're typing things in, it'll actually electronically set the tones off, and it'll be a computer voice, a computer-aided voice. So the dispatcher won't actually be paging it out or giving the message. So while she's still taking the information, we'll already be getting going with that. And it's also twofold too, because it helps with the health and wellness of the firefighters. It has like ramp up tones where they start lower and get louder instead of just pounding out, almost making you jump off your seat. So it helps with that. It has low level lighting, which will turn on with the pages throughout the station. So when guys are starting to respond, it's lit up in front of them. So the main components are going to be this year. It'll actually be able to put it in service, but next year by adding on the rest, we'll include the other stations with the results of the report.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Allen?
Regarding the, Chuck? Regarding the alarms, so this system is the dispatcher is typing in the information they're receiving. It's looking at that information and making a decision about where it's likely to dispatch out of and starts that process?
Yeah, that all works with a CAD. So it'll put in the area where the call is. As soon as she puts the address in, or the dispatcher puts the address in, it'll pick that area out to set the tones off. But whatever she's typing in is electronically read and put out over the page. So it's not an actual person paging. So if there's only one person in the dispatch center at the time, usually they would have to take the call, page us, give the message, and then get more information, where she can stay on the line and actually page it out and get that information to us without delaying.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? My only other question, Jay, with this approval of the 2022 capital budget and the 5-year plan, we're truly voting on the 2022 budget piece for the CIP, and the 5-year plan is kind of a guidance for future councils. Obviously, we have some wiggle room depending on needs and things that happen in between now and then, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, I just
They're
wanted to.
placeholders at this point.
Perfect, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, does anyone have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had a lot of questions. Are there any other questions? No. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That passes. With that, then, with no further business before the Finance Committee, I will adjourn.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. And I will reconvene the Common Council meeting and note that we are still on presentations. On to number 2, presentation by Ellers on the pre-sale report for Bond Series 2021B. We have a presentation by John Cameron from Ellers. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening, everyone. I will walk through the pre-sale report that is in your packet. So this is for the issuance of $2,860,000 of taxable general obligation community development bonds, Series 2021B. It is for financing projects within TIF districts 12, 14, and 15, with those TIF districts supporting the annual debt service payments associated with each district. The bonds, from an authority standpoint, are being issued pertinent to Statute 67.04. These are general obligation bonds, meaning that they count against your overall general obligation debt capacity. After the issuance of the bonds, the city will be at approximately 30% of your overall general obligation debt limit, with a little under $123 million of remaining general obligation debt capacity. In terms of the term and call feature, the bonds are being issued for a 19-year term. Principal on the bonds will be due starting April 1st, 2022, and run out through 2040. The amortization schedules are unique to each district, so the debt that's allocated to each district matches the cash flow for the district based upon development agreements that have already been put in place. There will be a prepayment penalty or a prepayment ability starting April 1st, 2030, or any time thereafter. So if the TIF districts reach a point where cash has accumulated and you have the ability to prepay the debt, you have that feature starting any time after April 1st, 2030. Also, if it's hard to imagine interest rates going too much lower than they already are, but if that were to happen, you'd also have the ability to refinance the debt for interest savings at that point, and possibly shorten the term up if, depending on the health of the TIF districts. From a rating standpoint, as part of the process, we'll go through rating with Standard & Poor's. The city currently has a AA rating, which is an extremely solid credit rating. So we'll be going through that process with S&P as part of the overall issuance process. The last thing that I can like to just walk through with you is the proposed schedule for the issuance. Really what we're looking at is having the official statement together right around October 11th with the rating call and due diligence call happening the week of October 4th. The sale day for this would be October 18th. We would take bids in the morning and be before you in the evening with the hopefully very good sale results. And then the estimated closing date, meaning the date that bond funds are available to the city, would be on or around November 3rd. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. I know we have other agenda items where we'll be going back to this, but I'll open it up if there's any questions for John regarding his presentation. All right. We'll be right back to you. But first, we're going to approve the consent agenda consisting of items 3 through 5.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Model and Kaler. Any questions on those? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda items for consideration. Number 6, initial resolution authorizing $2,860,000 to general obligation bonds for community development projects in tax incremental districts. Again, John from Ehlers is here. If anybody has any questions, otherwise we're looking for approval of that initial resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Model and Allen. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. And number 7, resolution directing publication of notice to electors relating to this bond issues.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any questions on the publication? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then number 8, resolution providing for the sale of $2,860,000 taxable general obligation community development bond series 2021B.
Second.
Thank you, Dolnick and Allen. Any other questions on this? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, John, for coming out. I think we're done with you. So.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to number 9, award contract for classification and compensation study. I'll kick this off. We had a little committee meet pretty briefly, consisting of our city administrator, Alderman Butchlick, Kaler, Michelle Huey, and myself. We reviewed a total of 4 proposals that came in and ended up choosing McGrath Human Resources Group, which you all should have had a time to take a look at. I mean, the other committee members can add, but overall, they just seem to have the most comprehensive path forward in evaluating our compensation plans and a really clear, thorough plan of action. So that's what we settled on. Afterwards, we ended up tearing open the envelopes to look at the costs, and ended up being a pretty good deal at a total of $30,000 was their ask. We did check references as well, and those all checked out just fine. So the recommendation from the committee is to award the contract to McGrath for that amount. And we'll open up if there's any other questions as well.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Butchlick. And that was our question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Who were the references we checked? You mentioned that several were checked.
Yep, I know one was from Mount Pleasant, right? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Do you have the other ones?
I spoke with Maureen Murphy, the village administrator of Mount Pleasant, and she had a very positive experience with McGrath. And specifically, the lead consultant is the same person, Melania, so she was really excited about that for us, and so it made it sound like it was a positive. Again, Michelle and I had a brief conversation with Dr. Victoria McGrath today, and again, a very positive first impression on a quick phone call with her, letting her know that this action was being recommended for council award tonight, and also the fact that we wanted to get started right away. So we just talked through that a bit, and we already have some paperwork in the works. Assuming that tonight's approval goes through, we'll be getting on it right away. Michelle, you can pop up and share the 2 counties that you talked to as well.
I talked to Barron County, the HR director at Barron County, and yeah, nothing but positive. She's actually, Dr. Victoria McGrath is up at Barron County this evening talking at their county board. So we got to talk to her on the way up there, so it's kind of nice. And then I reached out to Dodge County, but I have not heard back from Sarah yet. But otherwise, really good from Barron.
Did you get the sense, Michelle, that those counties went forward with what the recommendations were?
Yes, yep, definitely. And there's continuing the relationship with them too. So not just one and done. They actually are building a relationship with the group. So.
Great.
Cool.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we do have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of awarding the contract to McGrath Human Resource Group, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Jay, Alderman Butchlick, Alderman Kaler. Thanks for serving with me, and we look forward to seeing the results. All right. And we'll go to number 10, review a proposed automatic redistricting ward plan for the city of West Bend. So as everybody should know, we do a census every 10 years, and we have the joy of looking at our city map and our makeup and our distribution of population to take a look at our districts and really try to hone in on the most balanced form of our map with our 8 districts that we have. So the map that was presented before you was really the most equal in population. So I don't know, Mark, if you want to begin by presenting this initial map, and then I know that there was other comments and questions that came from the council that we'll be able to discuss as well. And I do want to thank Mark P. I want to thank you for being here because I heard that this is your vacation day, and you took the time just to come talk to us. So thank you. Thanks for being here. And I'll kick it over to you.
Believe it or not, this is actually fun for planners. Just before we get into the actual initial plan, I just want to give you a little bit of background. As the mayor indicated, as a result of every decennial census, we're required to look at what the numbers do to our distribution for representation. When we took the data from the 2020 decennial census and applied them to your districts as they exist today, we end up with some very broad ranges. We end up with anywhere from, I'm just glancing at it here, from about 3577 in population up to 4333 in population within your districts. That's a range of over 19% deviation overall, from minus almost 9.9 to a positive 9.2%. So we're required by statute to do this. In addition to that, to those changes, there is the factor of the county supervisory districts. The county the process is the county goes first and establishes supervisory districts. And because of their delineations, it does affect how we can define our wards, which make up our aldermanic districts. So it has implications to how we draw the maps as well. So those two factors, along with the actual population levels, districts 2, 3, 5, and 7 should actually decrease in population, and districts 1, 4, 6, and 8 should increase in population. And that's against an equal theoretical number. In this case, it's 3,969 inhabitants is the target number. It's simply the total number from the census for the city of West Bend divided by the 8 aldermanic districts. And that deviation that I was citing is measured off of that theoretical that you're shooting for. An acceptable range is plus or minus 5% at maximum. About 10% overall range is acceptable. So with that, I'd like to give you just a few of the principles. Mark Stram, our GIS manager, and Stephanie Adjustment, the city clerk, went through most of the effort, and then with Jay Shambo and myself doing reviews with them, we went through numerous iterations and multiple plans at each iteration to come down to this. And the guidelines that we have to follow, and I'd like to give them to you as well, because in case you ask for changes, I want you to understand what the parameters are. The districts, again, are supposed to be equally balanced in population as nearly as practicable. As I indicated, a 10% overall deviation is considered acceptable. Districts have to be contiguous with all the district parts connected. In our city, we have a few areas where it would be logical to put certain wards together into a district because they're right next to each other, but we have town lands causing a gap, and they're only contiguous with other parts. So we end up with some long lineal districts in some cases. Because of that factor, districts are supposed to be compact, or at least as compact as possible. There is no accepted standard. There's about 3 different methods that they use within the software that we use that's issued by the state. But without that, there is no numerical test for what the compactness has to be. We also have some requirements under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We cannot dilute the population of certain protected classes. Basically, any racial or language minority groups were somewhat fortunate in that we have relatively equal distribution, and it does not seem to impact, having to plan for that does not impact either the compactness standards, the continuity, or the equal spread. And then the nuts and bolts of it, districts have to be comprised of what's called legal wards. A ward can't have a population of less than 600 and can't be greater than 2,100 inhabitants, but they do not have to be balanced in population between wards, which is good because wards are completely made up of whole census blocks, and our census blocks range from 0 population to in the 600 or more in population. In fact, we have some blocks that could basically be a ward unto themselves within it. And we have no latitude. We cannot split blocks. We don't set up the block definitions. That's done by the census. So we were dealt a hand. If you want to put up that first map, Mark. I don't expect you to be able to read this, but give you an example. Mark, you want to pull up one of the larger ones there?
Right here.
That block right there is large in area, and it's
648.
648 residents in one census block. That makes a difference as to how we can assign it to different aldermanic districts without causing large numerical shifts. As I indicated before, the supervisory districts also have an issue on with us. We basically cannot have wards crossing supervisory districts. Aldermanic districts can. We try to avoid it where we can, because for every time that you include another combination of aldermanic district and supervisory district, you have another ballot style that has to be issued for that district, and that's an additional cost. It also causes voter confusion, and it can cause problems for our poll workers. So we try to be as efficient as possible. The plan that you've been given ahead of time in your plan here, or in your packet, minimizes the number of wards down to, I believe, 21. It also minimizes the number of combinations where we have multiple ballot styles. It's got 4 districts with 2 ballot styles in them and 4 districts with just one ballot style within them. And as the mayor indicated, that plan was numerically the most equal that we had. It has basically a percentage or total spread of 4.86%. It ranges from a negative 2.97% deviation from that target number to a positive 1.89. I will point out, though, it does do a significant portion of that spread is within one district. Happens to be Alderman Model's district. So with that said, there's some other characteristics which, I mean, besides these technical ones and that we have to meet, there are characteristics which are desired, and that's to mean consistency with past district and neighborhood boundaries. People get used to voting as a part of a particular group. They maintain the polling places, preferably within the district. This plan and most of the other plans that we've developed did that as well. And we have been able to maintain incumbents within their core districts. It's not to say the districts haven't changed in the representation that we gave you, but it did still keep without any duplications of your home locations relative to the individual districts. The process, before we get on to the initial plan, the late delivery of the census data, this year it came in mid to late August. Normally it's in by May or June. Means that there's a drastically compressed timetable. Washington County did a very nice job completing their tentative supervisory district delineations and released that data for use by the municipalities here in early mid-September. Yeah. And has worked with Mark for changes that a minor change that we needed to regarding polling places. So basically what we've done is we've analyzed it. We determined that we do have to go through this process to make changes. We've gone through many iterations, and we kicked you out an initial plan. To meet the required deadlines, after this initial discussion, we would need to bring to you on October 11th for consideration of a resolution adopting the ward plan on which the districts would eventually be based. We would then also have to bring back to you on November 8th for consideration of an ordinance adopting an aldermanic district map for the city. And that is due for reporting to the county by 11/10. So we're on a very, very fast track on this. Initial plan we gave to you, I indicated to you that you have a stat sheet that's in your packet, and also we gave you a colored copy of it tonight as a handout showing district population ranging from 3851 to 4044. As I indicated, that's that 4.86% deviation range. Meets all of the requirements for district size, continuity, compactness, minimizes the number of wards as I represented, it minimizes the ballot styles. All the polling places are within the corresponding district and historically consistent, which is not a small thing. All incumbents are within their corresponding districts, but I will point out that the altered district boundaries do not necessarily follow the recognized neighborhood or past district boundaries in some cases. And we'll try to answer any questions that you might have or any suggestions regarding the planning process or this map in particular.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Did you want to go through the actual map itself? Is there any other details you wanted to point out, or should I open it up to the council?
Just open it up to the council, please.
Sounds good. Then I'll open up. Alderman Dolnick.
I've already
asked Mark about adding the opposite side of Sand Drive, so you're already aware of that. And I also asked about Webster and Richards, but you were not especially hopeful that that could be put back into my district, but, so those are two items already on Mark's radar. And the only other question I had, Mark, is there or maybe for Stephanie, are voters sent a letter to tell them if they've moved to a different district?
Yes, that is part of the, after everything is adopted, that all the voters would be notified. But we were talking about that in our office, that'd be around $9,000 if everybody got a letter. So then I thought that maybe it was just the ones that changed polling locations would have to get a letter, and the rest could be notified through media or Facebook or social media or some other outlet, because I didn't budget that much money for a letter to be mailed to everybody.
So if you change polling locations, that means you've changed your aldermanic district, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. The 9,000, was that to send letters to people even if they hadn't moved?
I figured 18,000 registered voters at 50 cents apiece.
Okay, thanks.
So Alderman Dolnick, just to clarify, because I think every alderman probably could have the same issue with their district. So you talked about the other side of Sand Drive where it kind of cuts straight through the street. And so you're saying that the other side should also be roped into your district?
My side of Sand Drive where I live
is,
I currently have both sides.
Okay.
So under this plan, I lose my neighbors on the other side of my street.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha. And I mean, and I'm not, it's nothing against you. I'll just point out that I think if you look at this map, there's numerous spots in every district where there's streets getting cut. I remember District 4 having to walk right at the north end of town and it's split. So I'm just pointing that out because I think, as we do these changes, Mark, you were talking about it too, it kind of creates a ripple effect every time we move one block from another, right?
Yeah, it has the issue that if we moved a boundary over and now that district is gaining, we may have to tug down another place to make it numerically equal. And that means that we can only put it to so many different wards. So in some cases, it would create, we'd have to redo the ward boundaries, which is why we, typically they ask you to do the wards first and then come back and do the aldermanic districts. I did not want to do that because the base definitions for these wards affect what you can do on the ultimate district distribution. So it does there are some things we can do and there are other things that because of the size of the blocks that we're dealing with, the supervisory district locations, and a couple of other issues, we could end up making it numerically inaccurate and be challenged on that.
And I understand what you're saying, Mayor. When they're major streets, I mean, I'm used to that, whether it's Washington Street or when I was years ago, the 6th District Alderman, I had one side of Barton Avenue, but in this case, it's not River Road or Washington Street or Decor, it's a residential street. So I think that just makes it a little different.
I will point out that the third sheet that we provided you tonight, and I apologize, we should have probably, we didn't put that in the original attachments, did we?
Yeah, this one.
This one? Okay. That third sheet, the colored definitions are the new proposed districts on this initial plan. The solid dark lines are your current aldermanic district boundaries. So you can see just by the looking at if you know your district, you can go through it and you'll see which areas have been pulled out with a color change and which areas have been added in.
Got it. Thanks, Mayor. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead.
As I understand it, this was not the only plan. There was another one that wasn't presented to us that the mayor decided not to. Was there Can somebody explain the rationale? I mean,
My
the
question, too.
development of districting is a function of the legislative, which would be the council, not the mayor. Mayor is the executive branch effectively. So why weren't we presented with all of the information? Why weren't you coming to us ahead of time and asking us, what should we consider? I mean, we took Barton and went right down the middle of the proposed Barton bid and said, well, half of it's going to be in one district and half of it's going to be in another district.
I'll jump in and attempt to answer. So this is all of the information. It's all the blocks, all the proposed wards, and a version, and calling it the initial plan on the top left of your map, of a aldermanic district. It's true, Mayor Jenkins and I sat down and reviewed the last couple of plans or paper copies that staff had worked on for some time, as Mark shared, and then chose to recommend one plan to you with the opportunity, no action on tonight's agenda, to make recommendations and suggestions and changes. And several of you have contacted myself and Mark Petrovich already, and we have some of those ideas and opportunities to work on those. Stephanie and Mark Stram will be tasked with that, assuming that as a consensus leaving here tonight, you ask us to do that. If not, we'll just keep moving forward with this plan or whatever you tell us to work on.
Well, I personally think this plan is, found on road dead. If for no other reason, breaking up Barton doesn't make a lot of sense. There are other adjustments that could be made. You and I have discussed some of these, Jay. And it would be nice if we could see what those blocks are. In other words, we don't have a breakdown of where the blocks fall. Can you make that available to, you sent us something where we can look at we can zoom down to a supervisory district or existing or proposed ward, and that's all. I would like to be able to see what the impacts are of adding or removing blocks. And
so the map that's on the screen, Alderman Allen, is a static PDF block map that Mark Stram could add to the website and allow you to zoom in on it. It doesn't look like much when you just see it, but as you zoom in, the little numbers and the blocks, the census blocks that are predetermined for us up here,
right.
we can share that. We wanted to give.
Does that? Can I look at a block and tell how many people that block involves?
Those numbers that are shown within those boundaries are the inhabitants within that block.
Okay.
I'll touch to your point, to Alderman Allen's point. That was the one comment that I made to, Alderman Model, was about Barton area and that split there. I just struggled with the domino effect that creates as we, move things around. And Mark, one thing you didn't mention was you mentioned about our current deviation of population, but this current map, the initial plan map is about 4.9%. So that's the closest, again, equal population that we can get. So that was my only, concern about this map, is making sure that we had actual equal population in every district.
Yeah.
But then it sucks when you
Just
when you have to cut out the way that we do.
We're going through this bid conversation for one thing, and to pick on Barton of all districts, really.
Well, I'm sure we weren't picking on Barton, but as I said, Alderman, I did agree with that concern, and I was questioning too how we'd fix that. Yeah.
Is that a question?
What's that?
Can we put that question out there? How do we fix that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
Thank you,
yes,
Marks.
Alderman Kenny?
Yeah, I just, 2 questions. I'm thinking this is not going to happen. With the redistricting, does anybody up here change? Meaning, like, District 8 no longer has representation because I don't live there? I don't,
No.
I mean, I know 8, I still live there, but I'm just saying, is there anybody
Everybody still
that's-
lives within their.
Okay, I'm
districts,
like, are we gonna have like an emergency election or something, or I don't know what would happen.
yeah. Jed was a little worried, but he's good.
He's still there, okay. And then the other thing I was questioning, Cedar Community, it looks like is still kind of pinned as District 8's voting location. Wondering if there's been any talk about alternative, I know we've been doing City Hall already, that's not in my district, I've heard from people, it is kind of a drive. I ran a little late today, getting over here, it's kind of across town. Is there any other place that we could think of, a church, I don't know, a facility in the district we can try to merge over to now instead of City Hall?
I did not look into moving that because of Cedar Ridge. It was a great polling location. They almost consider it an outing for that day. Just a great facility to have the election held at. Great parking there, great accessibility. So I did not look into moving it. I was hoping to stay there.
Have we, I mean, I don't think probably this April we're gonna be holding it there.
I was hoping to.
You are hoping to?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if Cedar Community had any objections to that. With Delta and everything going on and all the different stuff, I mean.
They're still locked up with IDs and all kinds of stuff.
All right, I mean, we don't have to hash that out right now, we can kind of offline that, but I just think that's something
That's
that we
correct.
need
You
to-
don't establish your polling locations till after you have your census established, your
Okay.
redistricting.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, thoughts, suggestions for staff before they bring this back to us?
We're going to get the PDF that we can play with.
Yep, the
Would it-
blocks.
Would it make sense, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but would it make sense for us to maybe get a couple of options so it feels like there's a decision being made, or?
I don't know if that would complicate things more or not.
I don't know.
I think
If
Mark
that's
pretty
not a
much
good idea, that's fine,
laid
too.
out the parameters you guys have to follow.
I know it's
I
complicated.
can only imagine what it takes to come up with one, much let's say, well, let's throw these numbers all around and come up with 3. I mean, I trust you guys to put together the best proposed plan you can come up with. I mean, that's why you guys are what you do. I don't know why you're laughing, but then you're laughing at Mark and his team who have put a hell of a lot of effort into
No,
doing
I'm laughing
something
about the
that is
effort
by far
Jay
not
and
easy.
Michelle put into their compensation plan, actually, but.
All right, any other comments regarding this, the redistricting? Otherwise, you got your feedback, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. And we'll move on to number 11, ordinance amending section 1.646, para 1, regarding membership of the collective bargaining committee. Alderman Dolnick had put on this request, so if you don't mind, you want to kick it off?
I had been aware in years past, when I worked for the village, that during discussions amongst the chiefs, that the city had was not allowing the fire chief or the police chief to attend the bargaining meetings, and they were notable as being, at least at that point, the only municipality where the chiefs weren't allowed to attend. And I had kind of forgotten about it until recently, when the subject of fire department bargaining was mentioned at a council meeting, and then the light went off that, oh, that's right. So at some point in the past, the city code was changed, removing the police chief and fire chief from the list of people who would be attending the bargaining meetings. And so what I asked Ian to do was to amend that to let the chiefs return. I think it's appropriate. And then Ian had noticed that the city administrator, I believe, was not listed either.
Not explicitly. It was basically an appointee of the mayor.
So that's why this is before the council.
Thanks, Jed. I'll kick it off if there's any comments or questions.
Like, just as being on the bargaining committee right now, I mean, my understanding is that it's not that they're not allowed, it's just that they're not specifically required. if the negotiating team, such as the attorney, Jay, finance chair, mayor, and HR, I mean, because both the chiefs have been actively involved in the discussions. Michelle has, I mean, they brought together proposals. I know Chief Moyler sent an email. I believe he was on vacation actually the first day we kicked off negotiations. So he had sent an email about some of his thoughts ahead of time. Pretty much everything we're doing in negotiations we bring back and filter through the chief, but I just don't see the need to hamstring the council into forcing the chief to be a part of negotiations when we have the option to bring them in at any time, is my understanding.
I'm sorry. I mean,
I'll make a motion to get,
approve.
well, it was my resolution, if you.
Oh, so
allow
sorry,
me to
yeah,
make-
go ahead, yep.
I'll make
Go
the
ahead.
motion to get it on the floor.
okay, and model.
Second.
Okay.
Perhaps the city attorney could address what Megan is saying.
So, I mean, this is not a statutorily prescribed committee. This is just a committee that was established by the council. The committee is welcome to ask anybody they want to participate, but the committee as structured right now essentially means that the chief of police and the fire chief don't have a specific say in the bargaining process unless they're allowed in the door. So, I mean, yes, they can be asked in, but it's like saying you're the supervisor and you don't get a seat at the table, so.
But that's not how we've been doing it. I mean, Michelle, I know, has been actively seeking out participation from both the chiefs. I being in those meetings, am shocked to hear that people feel that they're not, because Jay, I mean, Michelle is not here. Have we had where we aren't getting feedback from the chiefs? Because I feel like we are, especially with our attorneys.
I'm not going to speak for the chiefs directly. The Chief Moyler's here and Deputy Chief Beistel is here. They can speak for themselves. Process-wise, I can share how it's gone in the previous negotiation 3 years ago and then this one now. We, staff, Michelle and I, meet with both chiefs, sometimes together, sometimes individually, sometimes with their respective administrative team, and then we meet with the negotiating team separate. So we've not met as a whole. Mayor did join us by conference call when we had the initial conversation with the chief and our attorney, Dan Valite. So process-wise, I think what Ian said is accurate, that the chiefs could be brought in if it was the will of the negotiation team. I would also say that it's been the will of the negotiation team to not bring them in. I know that both Chief Moyler and Chief Kudek have expressed frustration in the past for not being a formal member. Whether that is at all driving your code change or not, Alderman Dolnick, I don't know that, but and again, you can call on them, they can speak directly.
But I'll turn over to Alderman Model, because I think you're going to jump out of your seat.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
it's ridiculous. No, it seems to me in the last 3.5 years I've been here, it's been kind of an intentional, systematic leaving out of the people that really understand and know what is going on with their people better than anybody. And I know there's another negotiation that goes on based on that, but to say that they're involved is not as much as they want to be.
That might be true, but.
I mean, I would just say.
I see no problem with them being involved, or at least giving it a try.
I mean, just in my brief experience doing this, I second Alderman Kennedy that I truly feel like we've gotten a lot of information. And I guess I can't go into details of the negotiations, but I truly appreciate the chief's input, because that certainly drives a lot of the conversations that we've been having, because we are uneducated and we don't know. and I guess the other point of this is I don't want to put the chiefs in an awkward position if they're the managers of that department, but then to be on the other side of the bargaining table, I don't know, that just doesn't sit right with me. I wouldn't want to put them in that position. That's just my 2 cents. Yes, sir.
I think what we're talking about here is codifying their right to be there. And that's not something that that the council can take away from them once this is... That's not something the council can take away from them once we've changed this. Short of changing it again. In other words, I think it's important to basically give them a seat at the table and to codify that.
Alderman Dolnick?
To answer your question, Mayor,
Yeah.
or your observation, it is their job. It's not a matter of being uncomfortable. If we still had unionization of the other city departments, this would be more broad. Department heads should be at the bargaining table, and as far as police and fire, that is their job. As far as Alderman Kennedy and you, I guess I'd ask, okay, they're giving input, but why would you object to having them there? What's the problem with them being there?
I see a few problems potentially. One is scheduling. It's a nightmare to get all these people in a room together. Number two is it's not these specific chiefs or any chiefs, but I will echo what Chris is saying. We're going to have potentially a supervisor who should be going to bat for their team, potentially going to bat against their team. It's an awkward, I think it's a weird predicament to potentially put them in. And then the third thought that I have, and it's not either of these chiefs, but it's things that secret sauce recipes that are being discussed with attorneys and city administrators and future strategies. Potentially the person that could benefit, it could be a conflict of interest to have them in that meeting as well as being the manager of that side. So I'm seeing, I guess, three reasons. Again, like I said, I feel as somebody that's actually now taken part of the collective bargaining and being on that committee, we have the ability to discuss with them. As Jay said, he kicks it off with the meeting with the chiefs. Michelle also is involved. We bring back questions to them pretty much every single time we've gone into negotiations. I can't even think of a time where we have not said, okay, let's ask one of the chiefs this question, let's ask a chief this question, bring this back. So I guess, and we do have the option to have certain chiefs in or out at different times, I think, for whatever the strategy with our lawyers is determined, I guess. So I feel good about it.
I'll just say that any department head, in this case, again, it's narrowed down to just the chiefs now, who would reveal what takes place to the chief as management to reveal what's going on outside the bargaining room to the labor would be extremely unethical. If that were to happen, you got a bigger problem than just
I'm not
this.
saying that any of the chiefs that
understand.
we
Just the
have are
scenario.
going to do that,
Just
but
the scenario.
yeah.
Then why bring it up?
Because if we change this, this is go forward forever. Okay, I mean, potentially. And also making this change, we're in the middle of the cycle right now. We've already had meetings. We've already gone through a process. We're 3 in for fire and 1 in for police right now.
Alderman Butchick, so I'll hand it.
Years ago, when there was unions for public works, parks, water utility, the director of public works and head of water utility manager, they were on the bargaining committee, and they were able to, there were no issues at all. They were there for the employees. They know what was needed, and we didn't have any problems with that before. And I know that that did work out real well. Obviously now there is no more union there, but I didn't see any problem with it before. And the employees as well in union never had any concerns with it. I guess if the chief isn't in favor of it, then I see no difference. But if he's in favor, I don't see why we wouldn't let him in there.
Any other comments from the council?
I just want to point out, I guess, my philosophy in what we're doing in the union negotiations is, John had said, they were there for the employees, the managers were there for the employees, but the way I view union negotiations is it not that we're at the city there for the employees. The unions are there for the employees. We, as the city, are there for the city constituency. So I feel like that's a delineating factor, and again, why I think it's important to make sure that we get input, but that it's not policies being driven by the management and the employees. Just my point of view.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it seems that, having somebody that understands the job, not somebody who has, got elected to represent a constituency, but somebody who understands the job, a professional, is a valuable person to have at that negotiating table. And they should be there all the time. They should have a right to be there, not just, oh, well, I think we might want to ask them questions now. I think there's a reason that this makes sense.
Alderman Kelly?
If this gets passed tonight, what does that do to current negotiations? Does this take place after that's done? That's the one point I'll agree with Megan. I don't make a switch here in the middle of it.
Yeah, so I did talk a little bit about that with our city administrator and even Alderman Dolnick too. My preference would be to, have this go into effect after the current negotiations are finished, but Ian, did you have any comment?
I mean, you can set an implementation date. The default in there is that it's effective upon publication. You can set a effective date as part of that. The last line says the ordinance shall be effective upon passage and publication as provided by law. So the current motion does not set a implementation date other than what's in there, but it could be amended.
Jay, did you want to touch on that timeline that you and I talked about, where you thought might be ideal if we went that route?
Trying to speculate when current negotiations might be complete is difficult. If we end up in a quick negotiation and settlement with our fire, we already have 3 meetings in, 1 more meeting, that's possible. I guess I don't have the crystal ball to know whether that is going to be the case or not. If it goes to mediation arbitration, it's a months-long process, and realistically, it could be spring of 2022 before there's a resolve. There's no law that says we have to have a new contract by the end of the year, even though our contract is set to be done at the end of the year.
So you don't have a specific date?
Well, I mean, it's total speculation whether it's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
a quick negotiation or not, and I'm not going to give my gut
Yeah.
because we're in negotiation at this time.
Put a calendar date on it then? No? We have to do something.
Just like Ian mentioned.
No, we
you
don't
can
have to, as moved, this is acceptable and on publication. I see no reason not to include. Do you have something you're hiding from the current police chief and the fire chief about the police and fire negotiations? Is there a reason you would not want them involved? It sounds that way, Megan.
All right, we're not going to
That's ridiculous, Mark.
Yeah,
We're in the middle of negotiations, and we obviously can't comment on what's going on, but that's a ridiculous statement to make that this is about hiding. So, not even answering that.
All right. So Alderman Kaler, I think maybe were you trying to suggest a friendly amendment that would include that date? I mean, maybe we can go that route?
Yes, I would like to see that this doesn't take place until after the current. We're in the middle of a cycle right now. So
Okay.
whether that be spring of 2022 or whatever. Is that a date? I mean, April 1st of 2022 is, I think if we haven't settled it by then, we're probably got bigger issues. Just my suggestion.
Okay. Alderman Dolnick? Yep.
I understand fire is well along, but police has only had 1 meeting, and I don't think it makes any sense to say this has to be delayed for police, because at this point, they've only had 1 meeting. As far as fire, if negotiations are that close to being at the end, if Chief Kudek wants to go into the final meeting, he may even decide, well, it says shall. So, if he's there for the last meeting, I trust Chief Kudek to just take it as it comes. But I think that would be easier than trying to set a date on this, and more practical, again, because police, they've just started. And I don't think it would make any sense to have the police chief have to sit it out this early.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Alderman Dolnick, Obviously, you're bringing this resolution before us. Is it at a request of a certain individual?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, the story I gave you is exactly how this all transpired.
And hearing all the conversation, all the input, we seem to have two gentlemen in the room that would have a lot to say about this. Do they have anything to say about this? Is it within our realm to ask them if they have anything to say?
You can ask the chief.
My question then would be the police chief and the deputy fire chief, do they have any objections to this change?
Now you did it.
I do not have any objection to the change and do not have any objection to it taking place effective immediately. And I'd also be happy to answer any questions as to the history of past negotiations since I've been chief.
Thank you.
I shot a quick text to Chief Kudik, and he had no objection to the motion either.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think it died because, yeah, because it's your motion. So if you don't accept it, then it's you're good. So the motion has been made on the floor by Alderman Dolnick, second by Model, to approve as recommended in front of us. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I will call for a vote. And just to be safe, Steph, do you mind making this a roll call vote?
Alderman Butchlick?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Berquist?
Aye.
Alderman Kaler? Alderman Dolnick?
Aye.
Alderman Aaron's?
No.
Alderman Model?
Aye.
Alderman Kennedy?
No.
So the ordinance will come back for a second reading.
Sounds good. So the timing of that would be at our next meeting, correct? So it doesn't go into effect until that point, Steph?
That is correct.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you for the conversation, and thanks for bringing that up, Alderman Dolnick. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to switch things a little around. We're going to start with number 13, which is the ordinance amending sections 9.27, 10.03, para 10, and 25.04 of the municipal code. And this coalesces with number 12, which is a resolution adopting a bond schedule for the city of West Bend. And we'll start with Ian, I believe.
So the ordinance before you cleans up some references within the code. We've over time tried to scrub specific references to amounts of penalties out of the code so that they just go to the bond schedule that gets adopted as part of the Mid-Moraine Municipal Court. The first two changes were tweaks to that to basically change it to following the bond schedule as adopted by the council. The third one is modifying section 25.04 to just specifically reference that the penalties shall be set forth and adding specific language that says the city shall adopt a bond schedule by resolution, which will set forth the specific penalty. I will note that there was one oversight in 25.041B, that should reference 25, not less than 25 nor more than 1,000. That was one reference that got missed in this. The thinking behind raising it to 1,000 is not that we're going to have $1,000 fines. It's that we're just putting cushion in so that we don't have to come back and amend this every time the bond schedule gets changed. There were a couple that bumped up just above $500. So for multiple offense or more severe offenses. So if any motion could incorporate the amendment to change that 500 to 1,000. And if there's any questions, we can answer them, either myself or Chief Moyler.
Sounds good. Did you have any other comments, Chief?
No, I don't on that particular comment, but I do when you get to the resolution, Ian, have a question because I don't see in here the court wants it to take effect October 1st. I don't see that cited in the resolution.
Okay.
Do we need to do that? That the resolution would be adopted effective October 1st?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
On agenda item 13, motion to approve?
Second.
Approve as amended.
As amended, thank you.
All right, I'll give that to Model and Kaler. Any questions on that?
We're going back to 12.
Okay.
We're adopting the ordinance that tells us to adopt a resolution first.
Just a quick question, what's an OC device?
Which one are you looking at?
OC device violations in juveniles, weapons.
Oh, chief.
Ah, okay.
All right. So the motion second was for number 13, right? The ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments or questions on that?
I just have a question on the ordinance section 10.3 being amended. Any act, activity, or use that violates a public health order issued pursuant to Wisconsin statute 252.02 or 252.03. Violations of this ordinance shall follow the bond schedule adopted to the city of West Bend. What is happening right now?
We had a specific fine amounts in there.
Okay, so it's just is
Yes.
this?
We're basically removing specific fine amounts from the ordinances, and the specific fine amounts are part of the bond schedule. So both of these sections just referenced specific offense amounts or ranges for the offense. So we're just scrubbing those out so we don't have to go through and change various things in the code anytime the bond schedule changes. So this was just a specific, I forget what it was exactly, but it was.
That was last year when the state.
The public health order.
When we had the public health order, and that came to council at that time because we weren't doing the whole bond schedule. So that one specific thing was put in there. So we were following a bond schedule. It was just that for that specific offense, we added a special ordinance. Which now this will take that, we'll be able to do that.
Which has now been incorporated into the bond schedule moving forward.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now we'll take up that resolution number 12.
Second.
With the amendment that it be effective October 1st.
Thank you. Kaler and Allen. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That passes. And on to number 14, ordinance to amend the 2020 comprehensive plan for the city of West Bend, Wisconsin for a change in the recommended land use for approximately 4.2 acres of land located at the northeast and southeast corners of East Water Street and Forest Avenue from industrial to mixed use. This is the first of a bulk of agenda items by our business and development planner, Jim Ranke. Take it away.
Thank you. So on September 7th, the Plan Commission held a public hearing for a comprehensive land use change for the 4.2 acres. This area is actually located in our TIF district number 12. This would help facilitate the redevelopment of this area. So we're asking for consideration to change the land use from the industrial use to the commercial or to a mixed use district. As a part of this, the next item on the agenda also is also the rezoning, which would take into consideration of changing that from the M2 heavy industrial to the MXD mixed use district. Again, this would just be to help facilitate with the redevelopment of that area and consistent with the rest of the area.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any questions for Jim on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then number 15, ordinance to rezone approximately 4.2 acres of land located at the northeast and southeast corner of East Water Street and Forest Avenue from M2 Heavy Industrial District to MXD Use District. You just summarized it, but anything else?
Correct. No, this is the actual ordinance to change that zoning.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 16, ordinance to amend the 2020 comprehensive plan for the city of West Bend, Wisconsin for a change in the recommended land use for approximately 0.48 acres of land located at 527 North Street from two-family residential to single-family residential. Jim?
Thanks. Again, the Plan Commission reviewed the request on September 7th. This is to actually amend the land use plan. Currently, the land use has it as two-family. The house is actually being used as a single-family, along with a sliver of a neighboring parcel that the neighbors to the north have for access to their garage. So we're asking the council to consider the change from the two-family use to the single-family use, which it's already being used as. And again, the next item on the agenda would set the permanent zoning from the RD2 two-family district to the RS4 single-family district. Again, consistent with what's within the area.
Thanks, Jim. I'll look for a motion on that.
Second.
Thank you, Dolnick and Kaler. Any questions for Jim? Hearing none, all those in favor, start by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then number 17, ordinance to rezone approximately 0.48 acres of land located at 527 North Street from RD2 two-family residential district to RS4 single-family residential district.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 18, ordinance to amend the 2020 comprehensive plan for the city of West Bend, Wisconsin for a change in the recommended land use for approximately 16.8 acres of land located at the northeast corner of University Drive and West Decor Road. Jim.
Thank you. Again, the commission reviewed this request. This request is to change the land use for this area from multifamily and industrial to a single-family use. There currently is a single-family house that is on Decor Road. This would be affected to recognize that existing use. The single-family use that for the remaining portion that they're asking for would convert over some industrial area and multifamily area to a residential use for preservation and for a single-family house. Again, the zoning request that's following this actually establishes that zoning from the M1 light industrial use and the temporary use to the RS1 single family use, or zoning, I should say.
Thank you. Look for a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Kaler and Allen. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And last but not least, number 19, ordinance to rezone approximately 16.8 acres of land located at the northeast corner of University Drive and West Decor Road from M1 light industrial and TMP temporary to RS1 single-family residential district.
Second.
Thank you, Kaler, and I'll give that one to Model. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And I'll open up if there's any announcements for the good of the order. All right. Well, having no further business for the city council, I'll adjourn by the call of the chair. Have a great night.